What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking the question of should you be drafting a quarterback early this 2023 fantasy football season? An age-old question that we try and analyze every single year to see if that answer changes. So definitely make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at alldaypigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear it in the comments section, your thoughts on drafting a quarterback early, along with any other questions you guys might have. We will do our best to answer them all. But with that being said, let's get right into it. And for me right now, the best way to deep dive this question is to pull up draft rankings across several different websites. We're going to look at fantasypros. We're going to look at ESPN, at Yahoo as well, and kind of compare where the ADPs for these quarterbacks are, because, that's where we have to start with this question. We have to see where these quarterbacks are being drafted, and then basically come to the conclusion if the price is worth it. And for this matter, we're only going to be talking the top tier quarterbacks, basically the quarterbacks that are being drafted first. So the Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts tier 1 class. That's pretty much the consensus as far as the top 3 quarterbacks, the guys that are drafted the earliest, the guys that are ranked the highest. And that's pretty much the case across really whatever platform you are drafting on. So we're only going to be focusing on those top-notch quarterbacks. I wanted to get that out of the way. But with that being said, look, we've done a lot of mock drafts up to this point. We're going to do even more, and things will probably change a little bit once we get closer again to September. But I don't think it's going to change too much specifically for the quarterback position. For other positions like running back, wide receiver, definitely there's going to be movement up and down. But for quarterback, it's pretty much a done deal. So what you see in these trends on our Fantasy Pros mock drafts, ESPN, Yahoo, it's going to be somewhat similar come draft day for you. Now, obviously, there's going to be some variations depending on the league that you are drafting with, because, that throws a little bit of its own flavor into the equation, its own variability. If your league mates just don't value the quarterback position, then obviously the quarterbacks are going to kind of drop. But we're just talking again, on average, where these quarterbacks are being drafted. And if you've been keeping up with their mock drafts, you've seen the top guys, sometimes be drafted in the second round. And typically it's around the third round, early third round, I would say, end of the second, early third, when you see the names like Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Jalen Hurts be selected. Now, there's going to be a little bit of difference depending on the league size that you are in. For example, if you are in a smaller league size, I always say, positional advantages matter more there, because naturally, smaller leagues, everybody is going to have more depth at running back, at wide receiver. Those positions are going to drop. So those one-offs like quarterback, tight end, those positional advantages matter more. So I can make the case about drafting quarterback a little bit earlier there. But even in those scenarios, I still say it's, for me personally, anywhere earlier than the third round is way too early for quarterbacks. And the reason I say that, because again, let's take a 12-team league, which is pretty much, the most common league size that the majority of us play in. So 2 rounds, 24 selections. You can see here, I've got the Fantasy Pros rankings pulled up, and I'm looking at this from a half-point PPR basis. But the first 24 guys, and notice, in the first 24 names, there are no quarterbacks here. So it's the likes of, McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Austin Eckler, Barkley, Bijan Robinson. But even once we get outside the top 10, there's still some really good names like a Tyreek Hill, like a Tony Pollard, like a CD Lamb, like a Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And, that's my point here. In the first 24 picks, in those first 2 rounds, there's still some really elite players that I just don't think, you're essentially passing up a top 10 wide receiver or a top 10 running back right around that area to draft a QB1, the top tier guys. And again, that's either Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, or Josh Allen. So to me, passing up on a Garrett Wilson or a Jalen Waddle, that's tough to kind of, make the case for when, and this is the best thing about the quarterback position, I do think that the drop-offs in tiers aren't as drastic as some of these other positions. Because all of a sudden, if you're looking at tier breaks for running back and wide receiver, there's a huge drop-off, once you get maybe to like the RB1s to the RB2s, or to the wide receiver ones to the wide receiver twos, something like that. Because I think once you get right around this range, when you get from like the Breece Halls and the Najee Harrises, and throw Travis Etienne, Joe Mixon in there, but once you get afterwards to like Josh Allen, outside of the top 15 running backs, I think there's a pretty steep drop off there, and same with some of these wide receivers. After you get outside of the Chris Olaves, the Amari Coopers, the Keenan Allens, there's a steeper drop off. Whereas for the quarterback position, and this is what I always say, yes, look, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts, they are the top three quarterbacks. They're pretty, per fantasypros here, they're ranked pretty closely together. So Mahomes comes in at 32, Josh Allen at 33 overall, and Jalen Hurts at 36. So that's essentially translating to a middle third round pick for, Mahomes, and then a end of the third round pick for Jalen Hurts, which, again, I prefer. If I'm really selecting a top tier quarterback, I'm not doing it any earlier than probably the end of the third round. But when it's crunch time for me personally, come September, I'm waiting at least until like the fourth round or the fifth round. And this is the reason why. Because, okay, sure, these are the top tier guys, but let's look at the next group of quarterbacks. And we're going to scroll down. Let's scroll down. Let's continue to scroll down. There's a big gap here because there's a lot of other running backs, wide receivers sandwiched in there. But the gap between a Lamar Jackson and then let's say a Jalen Hurts isn't going to be that big, obviously assuming that Lamar Jackson stays fully healthy. The thing is, though, the difference in ADPs is about almost 20 spots. Jalen Hurts 36, Lamar Jackson 52. So, to me, I would much rather go for that next tier of quarterbacks because, in this next tier of guys, they're still really, really talented. I mean, Lamar Jackson, one of the highest rushing upsides as far as quarterbacks are concerned. That's super important in fantasy. Joe Burrow, one of the most elite offenses in fantasy football with the Cincinnati Bengals, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Mixon, Boyd. You get the picture. And then, not even that, but let's look at the quarterback 6, Justin Fields. You can make a case that Justin Fields should be ranked ahead of Lamar Jackson. Similar type of upside there. He is ranked 30 spots lower, 40 spots lower than Patrick Mahomes. So again, Justin Herbert, who I think the separation between him and Joe Burrow won't be that much. Almost 70th overall. Trevor Lawrence, 74th overall. I really think that this year, that sweet spot for the quarterback position is outside the tier 1 guys. The tier 2 guys for me would be, the Joe Burrows. The tier 2 guys for me are the high-end rushing quarterbacks. So that's Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields. And then tier 3 are Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence, those type of guys. And I'd much rather go after that tier 3 group because here I could potentially land one of these guys in the 6th round. And in those first 5 rounds, I've loaded up on, more than likely at least 2 top-notch running backs, 2 top-notch wide receivers, and then maybe a flex play or a tight end, something like that in those first 5 rounds. Because if you are drafting a quarterback, again, this is the whole point of understanding what it means to draft a quarterback early. You have to understand what you are giving up. you're essentially giving up, if you draft a quarterback in the second round, a top 10 running back or a top 10 wide receiver. And that is just so important. We see it every year. I mean, there's a reason why some people are able to stream the quarterback position. Some people are able to make the play. A lot of people, I should say, are able to make the playoffs and make deep runs with guys like a Kirk Cousins, guys like an Aaron Rodgers. It happens every single year. Those discount quarterbacks that we're going to throw away, there are absolutely going to be guys outside of the top 10 quarterbacks. I'm mentioning it again. Guys like Aaron Rodgers, for example, guys like Kirk Cousins that are going to go potentially in like the 8th, 9th, 10th round, if not later, that are going to finish as borderline, top 5 quarterbacks or, 6th, 7th, 8th overall, something like that. And the price you paid for them compared to what you would have had to pay for Patrick Mahomes, for Jalen Hurts, for, again, Josh Allen, it's night and day different. But I think when it's all said and done, that's the reason why it happens, because we know what Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen are. We don't have to do too much thinking, too much digging. Those guys are proven names. We just kind of draft them and then forget about it. Don't have to do the extra research of which quarterbacks are going to bounce back, of which guys have super high upside. It's just easy, set and forget type of deal. But that's not the way, fantasy football should be done, especially when you are drafting. What you have to do is you have to look for the value that isn't on the surface level. And that's how you get the advantage on your league mates. And here, we kind of looked at it on Fantasy Pros, these rankings for the quarterback position. But just so I can highlight the difference, let's look at the difference on Yahoo and on ESPN, because here for these quarterbacks, they're ranked even higher on Yahoo. Patrick Mahomes and these guys. So Jalen Hurts comes in 28th overall. So that's even earlier than what we saw on Fantasy Pros. On ESPN, you see Patrick Mahomes 27th overall. So this is why I pointed out it's going to be a little bit different from draft site to draft site on all these platforms. Don't get caught up by just the base rankings that these platforms have. Realize that positional advantage, matters to an extent, but you have to understand the positional hierarchy. Running backs, wide receivers are at the top, and then, you get to like tight end, quarterback. So please understand that. And, the takeaway message here for me is pretty basic. When you're looking at quarterbacks, if you really want to maximize your roster come draft day, don't take one of these top-notch quarterbacks in the first 3 rounds. If one of the top 3 guys are left in the 4th round, okay, it's a good value. Sure, you have my blessing. Go ahead, pull the trigger. But what would be the best of all is target those tier 2, tier 3 guys that are going 2 rounds later than the Mahomes, Hurts, and Josh Allens. That's how you're going to do the best. And then just load up on the running backs and wide receivers early on. And that's the best way for success. Let me know if you guys agree. But to me, this is a tried and true strategy. And honestly, every single year, pretty much it works out. Let me hear it in the comment section. Again, agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.